As you might know, I'm a huge fan of helper methods. So what I'm going to do is break this sorting method into several helper methods, however many seem appropriate, and I'll start with find the smallest item. So I might imagine making a helper method that returns a string. So private static string find smallest. We give it an array. This is supposed to return the smallest string, x. And in keeping with our philosophy in this lecture, I'm actually going to write the test first. Okay, so I'll just make it return some dummy value, and we'll write the test method before we write the actual find smallest method. So we'll do test the sort.find smallest method, public static void test find smallest. And here, now it turns out writing a test is going to be super easy using JUnit. I'll just copy my code for test sort. In this case, rather than sorting it, we'll call find smallest. And uh-oh, it's red. Okay, what's going on here? Oh, it has private access. Okay. Well, this really ought to be a private method, but our testing code is in a different class, so it can't access it. So how do we handle that? Well, the easiest and crudest way is to simply make sort's helper method public. And that's the approach I'm going to adopt in this lecture. Now, it's kind of ugly, right? Because that means I'm now exposing find smallest to the world. And that's not really the important part of what the sort class is about. It seems odd, but that's the easiest way. We will discuss in later parts of the class alternate approaches, and I'll also include it in the textbook for this chapter, but that's the quick and dirty solution here. But there are other ways, and this is actually one thing that's a little annoying about the design of access control in Java is that it makes it tricky to do this. But okay, so we have a hack though for our lecture purposes. Okay, so now in this case, if we want to talk about what our method is supposed to do, the output, the expected value, is no longer an array, but is rather going to be the smallest thing. So instead of an array, it's just a string. And in this case, it's an. Okay. And it should be in braces. So then after we do find smallest, we'll say actual equals sort find smallest. And then we will do assert equals expected. And in this case, actual. Okay. And so now this is all our test is. It's very short. And if we try running it, I'll change out what our main function is testing. We run this and we get no problems. Okay, that seems a little surprising. Aha, the reason is that it just happened to return the correct answer. Okay, well, I'll change my dummy value there. Whoopsie. Okay. All right, so expected and, but was I? Okay, good. Now we have a test which is failing, and that's a great thing. You know what would have been a better answer if we did null? Okay, there's no way that's correct. Okay, so here we have a method which is failing for test sort, and that's great. So now how do we write find smallest? That's our next question. Well, I'm going to basically just race through this because it's a pretty common pattern, something similar. We've probably done something similar in the past. And I'm just going to say int smallest index equals 0. So this is an index that's going to track the best known thing. And I'm going to say for int I equals 0, I is less than x.length, I plus equals 1. If the current item is smaller than smallest index, so basically we have found a smaller string than our best known smallest thing, then we'll say smallest index equals I. And in this case, we're done. However, there does seem to be some sort of issue, missing a return statement. Oh, okay, so we need to return x smallest index. Ooh, and actually I did this backwards. This should have said x smallest index. Okay, good. Okay, we still have a bug. What is this one? Less than cannot be applied to strings. Okay. So apparently the problem is that in Java, it is not possible to compare strings. How do we deal with that? That's something you may face as a student, right? I mean, I just figured, why can't I just less than some strings? Well, the correct answer is go to Google. Honestly, like that's the thing you should do. We live in the 21st century. It's there for the taking, knowledge that is. So we'll say string less than Java. How do I do this? Okay. How can I compare two strings in Java and define which of them is smaller than the other alphabetically? Okay, Stack Overflow is always a good result. So we look and we see, okay, you can use string 1 compared to string 2 if string 1 is lexicographically, who knows what that means? Okay, remember I'm playing student, so I'm gonna copy and paste some code and put it in here. Oh, oops, not there, that's the lecture. Okay, so we have some piece of code, A compared to B. If A is less than B, it returns a negative number, apparently. Okay, whatever that means. So I guess you get a number back when you call compare to. And I guess I'll just pattern match and I'll say xi compared to x smallest index. Okay. So now that I've done that, from the internet, if xi is less than x smallest index, comp will be -1. Okay, how do I know that? I saw it on the Stack Overflow post. And then I'll just say if comp is less than 0, that's the equivalent of xi is less than x smallest index. And I should be a little terrified now because I've just copied and pasted some kind of random garbage from Stack Overflow that as a student, I honestly didn't fully understand. And I'm just trying to get this out the door because I have something cool to do and I just want the points for my assignment because that's the life I'm living right now. And so I'll run it and I find it passed. It seemed to pass. Well, I saw before that I didn't really trust this test, so I can beef up my test a little. And I can maybe do another one down here. So let's do input 2. There are many, I don't know, pigs or whatever. And the smallest here is R. And then I will do actual 2. Okay, so sometimes you augment your test in the middle because maybe you don't fully trust it. And this is now expected to, okay, and input 2. Okay, so I've just beefed up my test a little. And now I try running it again, and it still passes. And that seems like probably a pretty good thing. So at this point, I feel pretty good that find smallest works. And again, it's not 100%, but I have this confidence that as a novice programmer, whenever you've built things in the past, you weren't able to get that confidence without turning often to some outside source or just running it a few times and throwing in some print statements maybe and just crossing your fingers. Now I have something much better. I have this mechanized tester that is running always, anytime I want, to make sure that my find smallest method seems to work. So good. So we'll move on to the next helper method in the next video and see how that goes.